when my mother looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're a burden, don't ever ask for help again." Something inside me just shut off. I smiled a smile cold as winter frost and thought if they're ready to throw me away like trash, I'll show them exactly what they've just discarded. Listen carefully. The plan I'm about to execute won't have any tearful reconciliations or heartfelt forgiveness. There will only be evidence, paperwork, and a perfectly timed reckoning that will leave them wishing they'd chosen their words more carefully. My name is Claire Bennett, and at 42 years old, I thought I'd already learned every possible way my parents could disappoint me. I was wrong. I run Harbor & Co., a small boutique consulting firm in the old quarter of Harbor Heights, a sleepy coastal town where everyone knows everyone's business, or at least they think they do. The exposed brick walls of my office overlook the marina, and on most days, I can convince myself I've built something solid here, something that matters. But that Tuesday afternoon in March, as I stared at my laptop screen showing another bounced payment from my biggest client, I felt the foundation cracking beneath me. Carson Industries had filed for bankruptcy without warning. They owed me $87,000, nearly 6 months of work. My hands shook as I scrolled through my accounts. Payroll was due Friday, rent on the office space next week. The expansion loan I'd taken out last fall suddenly felt like a noose around my neck. I did what I'd done before, though it killed me to do it. I called my parents. Harold and Margaret Evans lived 40 minutes inland in a sprawling ranch house I'd helped them buy 5 years ago when Dad's pension hadn't stretched far enough. Over the years, I'd covered their property taxes, paid off Mom's medical bills when her insurance wouldn't cover experimental treatments, even funded my nephew's college tuition when my brother Jake couldn't manage it. We're talking nearly $300,000 over the past decade, not that I was keeping a detailed count. Well, actually, I was. Every receipt, every transfer, every canceled check sat in a folder marked Family in my filing cabinet. "Hi, Mom," I said when she picked up on the 4th ring. I could hear the television blaring in the background, one of those afternoon court shows she loved. "Claire." Her voice was flat, already impatient. "What is it?" "I need to talk to you and Dad about something important. Carson Industries just went under. They owed me a substantial amount, and I'm in a temporary bind. I hate to ask, but—" "How much?" she interrupted. "Just $20,000, as a loan. I can pay it back within 6 months once I collect from—" The laugh that came through the phone was sharp enough to draw blood. "You're joking, right after everything we've done for you." My mind went blank. "Everything you've—" "Mom, I've been supporting you both for years. Supporting us." Her voice rose to that pitch I remembered from childhood, the one that meant I was about to be put in my place. "We gave you life, Claire. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years, and now you call here with your hand out. You know what you are." I waited, my chest tight. "You're a burden. You've always been a burden, even as a child, always needing, always taking. Don't ever ask us for help again." The line went dead. I sat there in my office, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. Outside, seagulls circled over the marina, their cries carrying on the salt wind. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across my desk, highlighting the stack of bills I'd been trying to juggle. Something shifted inside me in that moment. Not broke shifted, like tectonic plates realigning after years of pressure. The hurt was there, yes, a familiar ache I'd carried since childhood, but underneath it, something colder began to crystallize. I hung up the phone and opened my laptop, not to check my dwindling bank balance this time, but to access a different folder, the one where I'd kept every record, every transaction, every proof of payment I'd made on their behalf. As I scrolled through the documents, a plan began to form. They wanted to rewrite history. They wanted to pretend I was the burden while they lived in the house I'd bought, drove the car I'd paid off, enjoyed the comfortable retirement I'd subsidized. Fine. I pulled out a legal pad and began making notes. If my parents wanted to play this game, I'd show them I'd learned from the very best. After all, they'd taught me everything I knew about family, including how to destroy one. The seagulls outside seemed to laugh as I worked, their cries echoing off the water. By the time the sun set over Harbor Heights, painting the sky the color of old blood, I'd filled 3 pages with notes. The hurt was still there, might always be there, but it had transformed into something useful now, something with teeth. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and my laptop, diving deep into the financial history I'd tried so hard to forget. The numbers told a story I'd been too blind or too hopeful to see clearly before. November 2019. Paid off their mortgage arrears, $32,000. They'd called me crying, said the bank was threatening foreclosure. Dad had been out of work for 6 months. Mom's part-time job at the library wasn't enough. I'd emptied my emergency fund without hesitation. March 2020. Mom's cancer scare. Insurance wouldn't cover the specialist in Boston. $17,000. She'd held my hand in the waiting room, told me I was the best daughter anyone could ask for. 2 weeks after she got the all clear, she stopped returning my calls for a month. August 2021. Dad's gambling debts. He'd sworn it was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness after his brother died. $25,000 to keep some very unpleasant people from breaking his kneecaps. He'd hugged me afterward, tears in his eyes. The next Christmas, they gave me a $20 gift card to Starbucks. The pattern was so clear now, spread across my screen in neat columns of dates and amounts. They only called when they needed something. The loving parents act lasted exactly as long as it took for the check to clear. Then came the gradual withdrawal, missed Sunday dinners, forgotten birthdays, conversations that grew shorter and more distant until the next crisis hit. But there was something else, something I'd noticed but never questioned. I pulled up their social media accounts, cross-referencing dates. 2 weeks after I'd paid off their mortgage, they'd posted photos from a cruise to Alaska. "Living our best life," Mom had written. 3 days after Dad's gambling debt payment, new golf clubs appeared in his Facebook photos. "Treating myself." The caption read, "My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Jake. Mom says you're having money troubles. Maybe you should manage your business better. We all have to stand on our own feet. Claire." I stared at the message. Jake, whose son's entire college education I'd funded. Jake, who'd never paid me back the loan for his divorce lawyer. Jake, who was currently posting Instagram stories from a ski resort in Aspen. Something else caught my eye as I scrolled through old bank statements. Regular transfers from my parents' account to an address I didn't recognize. $500 every month like clockwork, even during their supposed financial crises. I Googled the recipient Jensen Investment Properties. A few more clicks revealed the truth: they owned a rental property 2 towns over, had owned it for 7 years. My hands trembled as I did the math. The rental income alone would have covered most of their emergencies. They'd been playing me, using my guilt and sense of duty while secretly building their own wealth on my back. I found more. A safety deposit box at a bank across town, premium bonds purchased during the same month they'd claimed they couldn't afford Dad's heart medication. A classic Mustang in storage Dad's dream car that he'd supposedly sold years ago to make ends meet. The worst discovery came at 3:45 a.m., buried in an email Mom had accidentally forwarded to me last year along with a chain of recipe exchanges. I'd never scrolled down far enough to see her conversation with her sister Linda. "Claire's so easy to manipulate. Just mention money troubles and she opens her wallet. We've got her trained well. The guilt trips work every time. Harold says we should push for more before she catches on. Maybe claim the house needs a new roof that's good for at least $20,000. I had to run to the bathroom to throw up. When I returned to my laptop, the hurt had completely crystallized into something else. I created a new spreadsheet, documenting everything with the kind of precision I used for my most important clients. Every payment, every lie, every manipulation. I tagged receipts, downloaded social media posts, took screenshots of everything. By dawn, I had a file that would make any forensic accountant weep with joy. But I wasn't done. If they thought I was just going to quietly accept being used and discarded, they didn't know their daughter at all. Or maybe that was the problem. Maybe they'd never bothered to know me at all. I closed my laptop and made coffee, watching the sunrise paint Harbor Heights in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere across town, my parents were probably sleeping peacefully in their paid-off house, dreaming of their next manipulation. Let them sleep. They'd need the rest for what was coming. The first step was simple. I had power of attorney over 2 of their accounts, something they'd granted me years ago when Dad had his heart surgery and needed someone to manage bills during recovery. They'd never revoked it, probably forgot it existed. That Tuesday morning, I logged into their account management system and suspended all automatic transfers from my business account. The monthly allowance of $3,000 I'd been sending them gone. The quarterly property tax payments I'd been handling. Their problem now. Then I sent them a text, taking a 30-day break from family financial matters to reassess our relationship. Please budget accordingly. My phone exploded within minutes. 7 missed calls from Mom, 12 from Dad, 23 text messages ranging from confused to furious. I let them all go to voicemail, saving each one carefully. The messages were gold. Claire, what the hell is this about? The mortgage payment is due tomorrow. Dad's voice, panicked. You ungrateful little witch, after everything we've sacrificed for you. Mom, shrill and vindictive. Claire, sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Call us back. Please. Dad again, trying the sweet approach. By noon, they'd escalated. Mom left a voicemail that made me smile coldly. We're your parents. You have an obligation to us. We gave you life. You owe us everything you have. If you don't restore those payments by 5 p.m., we're calling our lawyer. Perfect. Threats of legal action, recorded and time-stamped. I waited until 4:30 p.m. to respond with a single text. I owe you nothing. You said I was a burden who should never ask for help. I'm simply returning the favor. Handle your own finances. The next wave of messages came with a different flavor. Suddenly, they were sick. Dad's heart was acting up. Mom's cancer might be back. They couldn't afford their medications. The house might go into foreclosure. They'd be on the streets. I knew they were lying. I'd seen their bank statements. After all, but I documented everything anyway. Every manipulative message, every false claim, every guilt trip. My phone storage filled up with screenshots. On day 3, they tried a new tactic. Jake called me. Claire, what are you doing to Mom and Dad? They're devastated. Mom's been crying for days. Interesting, I said, opening my laptop to check Facebook, because according to her post from 2 hours ago, she's having a lovely lunch at the country club. Silence. Then, you're being cruel. Am I? They have a rental property. Jake, investment accounts, premium bonds. Did you know that? That's not true. I have the documents. Would you like to see them? He hung up on me. Day 5 brought the extended family. Aunt Linda, 3 cousins. Even my grandmother called to tell me what a disappointment I was. I recorded every call, saved every text. The family narrative was fascinating somehow. I'd transformed from the successful daughter who'd always been there into a selfish monster overnight. Mom had been busy spreading her version of events. But the most interesting development came on day 7. A voicemail from their bank. Mr. Evans, this is regarding your recent large withdrawal request. Please call us back to verify the transfer of $75,000 to the Cayman Islands account. They were moving money, hiding assets, getting ready for something. I called my own bank immediately and changed all my account numbers, passwords, and security questions. Then I placed fraud alerts on all my credit reports. Whatever they were planning, they wouldn't catch me off guard. Day 10 brought a registered letter. They were demanding formal repayment of all the loans they'd given me over the years. Apparently, my childhood bedroom and board from birth to age 18 came to the tune of $200,000. They'd itemized everything: meals, clothing, school supplies, even birthday presents. I actually laughed out loud. They'd put it in writing. Their delusion, their greed, their complete rewriting of history all legally documented and signed. By day 14, the messages had turned darker. Mom left a voicemail at 2:15 a.m., clearly drunk. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, we have plans for you. Claire, big plans. You're going to regret this. We know things about you. We can make your life hell." I saved that one in 3 different places. Day 20 brought silence. No calls, no texts, no emails. It was almost worse than the barrage of communication. They were planning something. I could feel it. On day 25, I got my answer. A neighbor from their street called me, concerned. "Claire, I thought you should know your parents have been going around the neighborhood with some kind of petition. They're asking people to sign statements about your mental state. They told the Johnsons you'd had a breakdown." The final piece clicked into place. They weren't just trying to punish me or guilt me back into compliance. They were building a case. I hired Patricia Miles on a Wednesday morning. She came highly recommended by my corporate attorney, a former FBI investigator turned private detective who specialized in financial fraud and family disputes. Her office was austere, all steel and glass, matching her personality perfectly. "Let me understand this correctly," Patricia said, reviewing my documentation. "You suspect your parents are attempting to have you declared mentally incompetent." "I know they are." The neighbor's call confirmed it. "They're collecting statements, creating a false narrative." Patricia nodded, her silver hair catching the light. "I'll need 3 days for preliminary investigation, full financial forensics, surveillance, and background checks on any attorneys they might have contacted." 3 days later, she called me at 11:45 p.m. "You need to see this immediately. Don't come to my office. Meet me at the 24-hour diner on Riverside." When I arrived, Patricia was sitting in a corner booth with a laptop and a thick folder. Her expression made my stomach drop. "Your parents hired attorney Marcus Fitzgerald 6 weeks ago," she began without preamble. "Before they called you a burden. This was planned, Claire." She showed me the evidence. Fitzgerald specialized in conservatorships and elder financial abuse cases, except this time. He was working in reverse. The strategy was elegant in its cruelty, paint me as unstable. Claim I'd been financially manipulating them, then petition for control of my assets under the guise of protecting family interests. "There's more," Patricia continued. "They've been in contact with Dr. Raymond Kowalski, a psychiatrist known for providing favorable evaluations for the right price. He's already written a preliminary assessment based on their observations of your behavior." I read the document, my hands shaking. According to this doctor I'd never met, I showed signs of bipolar disorder, persecution complex, and financial irresponsibility. The evidence was creative fiction claiming I'd given them money impulsively during manic episodes, that I'd accused them of elaborate conspiracies, that I'd been exhibiting erratic business behavior. "They've also been cultivating witnesses," Patricia added. "Your parents have been telling people you've been acting strangely for months. They've shown neighbors edited text messages, taken quotes out of context. Mrs. Henderson from their church signed an affidavit saying she saw you screaming at your parents last Christmas. I wasn't even there last Christmas. I was in Denver for a conference. I know, I have your travel receipts, but they're counting on no one checking." Patricia pulled out another document. "This is the worst part. They've already drafted paperwork to take control of Harbor & Co. Once they have conservatorship, they plan to sell it to Fitzgerald's brother-in-law for 1/10 of its value." The room spun. This wasn't just about money or control. They wanted to destroy everything I'd built. "There's a final piece," Patricia said quietly. "I found evidence of a second bank account they opened in your name 15 years ago. They've been depositing and withdrawing money, creating a pattern that looks like financial instability. If they present this to a judge without context, it would look like I've been hiding assets, moving money erratically." "Exactly." I sat back, absorbing the scope of their betrayal. "How long before they file? Based on Fitzgerald's calendar and court filing patterns, 2 weeks, maybe less. They're waiting for one more piece. They've scheduled a family intervention for next Tuesday. They plan to record it, Probably edit it to make you look unhinged. I smiled then, a cold expression that made Patricia raise an eyebrow. Perfect. Let them come. Claire, you need to take this seriously. I am more seriously than they can imagine. I pulled out my phone and showed her my own recordings, my own documentation. They're not the only ones who've been building a case, but mine has one advantage. It's actually true. Patricia reviewed my files, her expression shifting from concern to something like admiration. This is comprehensive, but you need legal protection immediately. Already arranged. Daniel Harper is preparing an emergency injunction against any conservatorship filing. I also scheduled an independent psychiatric evaluation with 3 separate doctors for tomorrow. Full cognitive testing, recorded sessions, the works? Smart. What about the fake bank account? I'll need you to document the full trail, every transaction, every signature. Can you get security footage from the bank branches they used? Patricia nodded. Give me 48 hours. As we prepared to leave, she stopped me. Claire, I've seen a lot of family disputes, but your parents aren't just greedy. This is malicious. I know, I replied, gathering my copies of the evidence. They taught me well, though. They always said family was everything. They just never specified whether that meant protecting it or destroying it. I drove home through empty streets, my mind already working through contingencies. The intervention they'd planned would be their undoing. They wanted to catch me off guard, make me emotional, create their evidence. Instead, they'd walk into a trap of their own making. Daniel Harper's office occupied the top floor of Harbor Heights' only high-rise, a testament to his success in corporate law. He'd agreed to meet me at 6 a.m. on Thursday before his regular clients arrived. Claire, I've reviewed everything, he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Your parents' attempt at conservatorship won't hold if we move fast, but we need to go on the offensive. I placed Patricia's surveillance report on his desk. I want to file a restraining order for financial harassment and attempted fraud. Can we do that? With this evidence, absolutely. But I suggest something more comprehensive. Daniel pulled out a legal pad. We file for an emergency protective order against financial exploitation. Document the fraudulent bank account they opened in your name, and petition for a forensic accounting of all family financial transactions going back 15 years. That's aggressive. It needs to be. They've hired Marcus Fitzgerald. He's dirty but effective. We need to establish the narrative before they do. I spent the next 3 hours providing detailed statements, signing affidavits, and reviewing legal strategies. Daniel's paralegal, a sharp young woman named Jessica, helped compile exhibits from my documentation, every receipt, every bank statement, every recorded threat. That afternoon, I underwent my first psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Sarah Mansfield, a respected psychiatrist who'd testified in hundreds of competency cases. Ms. Bennett, I've reviewed your medical history and conducted our assessment, she said after 2 hours of testing. Not only do you show no signs of mental incompetence, but your cognitive function tests place you in the 95th percentile. I'll be providing a detailed report stating that any claims of mental instability are categorically false. The second evaluation with Dr. James Wright yielded similar results. By Friday evening, I had 3 independent psychiatric assessments, all confirming my mental competence and emotional stability. Saturday morning, I met with Patricia again. She'd uncovered more. The fraudulent account, she said, sliding photos across the table. Your mother opened it in person, but she wore a wig and sunglasses. Amateur disguise work. The bank's security footage is clear enough for facial recognition if enhanced. And the signatures, forged. I had a handwriting expert review them. Your mother's gotten good at mimicking your signature, but there are telltale inconsistencies. Plus, several deposits were made when you were provably out of state. I studied the transaction history. They'd been smart about it small, irregular amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic reviews. But over 15 years, it added up to nearly $200,000 in suspicious activity. There's something else, Patricia continued. Fitzgerald has been reaching out to your clients. He's concerned about your ability to manage their accounts given your family situation. My blood went cold. He's trying to destroy my business reputation. Trying. But I've already contacted 5 of the clients he approached. Once they heard the real story and saw the evidence, they were appalled. 2 offered to provide character references if needed. Sunday was spent setting careful traps. I called my parents, my voice deliberately shaky. Mom, Dad, I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk. This whole situation has gotten out of hand. Finally coming to your senses. Mom's voice was triumphant. We'll come by Tuesday afternoon. Actually, could you make it Tuesday at 2 p.m.? I have a client meeting that morning. Fine. And Claire. We're bringing Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda for support. Perfect. Witnesses who could later testify to what really happened, not some edited version. I spent Monday preparing my office, hidden cameras in the bookshelf, legally placed since it was my property and workspace, a voice recorder in my desk drawer, my phone set to automatically back up all recordings to the cloud. Daniel had advised me carefully on the legal aspects. In our state, you can record in your own office without consent, but be careful not to entrap them. Let them speak freely. I also arranged for something else. Officer Patricia Brennan, a friend from college who'd joined the Harbor Heights Police Department, agreed to be on standby 2 blocks away. If you feel threatened, text me a simple X, and I'll be there in under 2 minutes. The final preparation was perhaps the most satisfying. I compiled everything, every piece of evidence, every document, every recording into a comprehensive package. 1 copy went to Daniel for safekeeping, another to a safety deposit box, a 3rd stayed in my office safe. But the 4th copy went somewhere special. I'd contacted Marina Phillips, an investigative journalist with the Harbor Heights Gazette who'd won awards for exposing corruption. She was very interested in a story about elderly parents attempting to defraud their successful daughter. I won't publish anything without your go-ahead, Marina promised. But if they try to destroy you publicly, we'll be ready to respond. Monday night. I couldn't sleep, not from fear, but from anticipation. They thought they were walking into an intervention where they'd break me down, make me cry, get their evidence. Instead, they were walking into a courtroom of my own making. Every word would be documented, every lie exposed, every threat recorded. At 11:59 p.m., I sent a final email to Daniel. Everything is in place. Let them come. Tuesday arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for a family execution. At 1:45 p.m., I sat at my desk, documents arranged precisely before me. The hidden cameras were recording. My phone was ready. Daniel Harper waited in the conference room next door, able to hear everything through the thin wall. They arrived at 2:07 p.m., late enough to seem casual but not enough to appear rude. Mom entered first, wearing her church pearls and a sympathetic expression that didn't reach her eyes. Dad followed, then Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda. But there was a 5th person, Marcus Fitzgerald himself, carrying a leather briefcase. You didn't mention bringing your lawyer, I said calmly. We're just concerned about you, sweetheart, Dad said, his voice dripping false warmth. Mr. Fitzgerald is here as a friend. Of course he is. I gestured to the chairs arranged in front of my desk. Please, sit. Mom pulled out her phone, placing it prominently on the desk. Recording. Good, let them create their own evidence. Claire, she began, we're here because we love you. This recent behavior cutting us off, making wild accusations, it's not like you. What specific behavior concerns you? I asked, keeping my voice level. The paranoia. Uncle Robert jumped in, clearly rehearsed. Thinking we're plotting against you. That's not normal. Claire. I pulled out my first folder. You mean like this email from Mom to Aunt Linda, dated 6 weeks ago. I read aloud. Claire's so easy to manipulate. We've got her trained well. Harold says we should push for more before she catches on. The room went silent. Mom's face drained of color. Where did you? That's private, she sputtered. You forwarded it to me by accident, along with your recipe chain. I pulled out the next document. Or perhaps you mean this consultation invoice from Mr. Fitzgerald's office, dated 8 weeks ago before our phone call where you called me a burden. Fitzgerald shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Bennett, these documents were obtained from my own email and through legal private investigation. Everything properly documented. I turned to the next page. Speaking of documentation, let's discuss the Heritage Bank account opened in my name 15 years ago. The one with $200,000 in suspicious transactions? Dad's hand trembled as he reached for his water glass. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I pulled out Patricia's photos. Because this security footage shows Mom entering Heritage Bank wearing a black wig and sunglasses. The facial recognition match is 92%. This is ridiculous. Mom stood up, her voice shrill. You're sick, Claire. You need help. I agree. That's why I underwent 3 independent psychiatric evaluations last week. I placed the reports on the desk. Dr. Mansfield, Dr. Wright, and Dr. Huang all confirmed I'm completely competent. Cognitive function in the 95th percentile. No signs of any mental illness. Fitzgerald reached for the reports, but I pulled them back. You can request copies from the court when we file our restraining order tomorrow. Restraining order. Aunt Linda gasped. For financial harassment and attempted fraud, my attorney has everything prepared. I pulled out another folder, including this interesting document, a conservatorship petition Mr. Fitzgerald prepared but hasn't filed yet. Tell me, when were you planning to submit this? After today's intervention gave you enough edited footage. The silence stretched. Mom's face had gone from pale to flushed. Dad was sweating despite the cool office. You ungrateful, Mom started. Choose your next words carefully. I interrupted. Everything is being recorded, legally, in my own office. She froze, eyes darting to the corners of the room. Here's what's going to happen. I continued. You're going to drop this conservatorship attempt immediately. You're going to return every penny from that fraudulent account, and you're going to sign this document acknowledging that all money I gave you over the years were gifts, not loans. We won't sign anything, Dad blustered. I pulled out my phone and played a voicemail. Mom's drunken voice filled the room. You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, we have plans for you. Claire, big plans. We can make your life hell. That's a threat, I said simply. Criminal harassment. Officer Brennan at the Harbor Heights PD has a copy. She's particularly interested in elderly criminals who prey on their children. Fitzgerald stood up. We're leaving. Don't contact my clients again. Gladly. But first, I pulled out the final folder. Patricia Miles discovered something fascinating. The rental property you own, Mom and Dad, the one you never mentioned while begging for money. You've been collecting $800 monthly for 7 years. That's $67,000. While claiming poverty. Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda were staring at my parents now, comprehension dawning. You told us Claire refused to help with your medical bills, Linda said slowly. You said she abandoned you. She's lying, Mom shrieked, but her panic gave her away. I spread out the receipts. $300,000 over 10 years, every payment documented, while they hid assets and built a case to steal my business. The room erupted. Linda turned on her sister. Robert was demanding explanations. Fitzgerald was trying to leave. In the chaos, Dad made a mistake. You little bitch, he snarled, lunging across the desk. We gave you everything. I stepped back calmly and pressed send on the pre-typed message X. You gave me trauma and taught me to never trust family, I replied. But you also taught me to document everything. Thank you for that lesson. Through the window, I could see Officer Brennan's patrol car pulling up outside. Officer Brennan's arrival shifted everything. Dad immediately stepped back, trying to compose himself, but the damage was done. 5 witnesses had seen him lunge at me aggressively, and the cameras had captured everything. Is there a problem here? Officer Brennan asked, her hand resting casually on her belt. No problem. Officer, Fitzgerald said quickly. We were just leaving. Actually, I said, I'd like to file a report. Mr. Harold Evans just attempted to assault me in my office. I have video evidence and multiple witnesses. The next 2 hours were a careful dance of legal procedures. Statements were taken, footage was reviewed, and Dad was issued a citation for attempted assault. More importantly, it created an official record, one that would destroy any credibility their conservatorship petition might have had. By Thursday morning, Daniel Harper had filed our comprehensive lawsuit. The charges were extensive fraud, identity theft, financial elder abuse in reverse, conspiracy to commit conservatorship abuse, and harassment. The evidence package we submitted was 400 pages thick, but the real explosion came from an unexpected source. Aunt Linda, furious at being deceived, contacted me that evening. Claire, I had no idea. Your mother told us horrible things about you for years, but there's something you should know. She's been doing this to others too. Linda revealed that my parents had been running similar scams on elderly neighbors, convincing them to invest in fake opportunities, the rental property purchased with money from Mrs. Garrett next door, who thought she was investing in a medication assistance program for seniors. I immediately shared this with Patricia Miles and Daniel Harper. Patricia found 3 more victims within 48 hours. Daniel amended our filing to include racketeering charges. Friday brought the emergency hearing. The courthouse was small but imposing, its marble corridors echoing with footsteps and whispered conversations. My parents arrived with Fitzgerald and a new attorney. Apparently even Fitzgerald had limits. Judge Harrison, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence with sharp eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, these are serious allegations. The fraudulent bank account alone constitutes identity theft. Their new attorney, a nervous young man named Bradley, tried to argue. Your Honor, this is a family dispute that's gotten out of hand. My clients are elderly and your clients, Judge Harrison interrupted, appear to have systematically defrauded their daughter of $300,000 while attempting to gain control of her assets through fraudulent means. The psychiatric evaluations Ms. Bennett provided clearly show she's competent. The evidence of conspiracy is overwhelming. She turned to my parents. I'm issuing an immediate restraining order. You are not to contact Ms. Bennett, her business, her clients, or come within 500 feet of her property. Furthermore, all assets in the fraudulent account are frozen pending investigation. Mom started crying, not real tears, but the calculated sobs she'd perfected over years of manipulation. She's our daughter. How can you keep us from our daughter? You should have thought of that before you tried to steal her business, Judge Harrison replied coldly. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. The words criminal prosecution finally penetrated Dad's armor. His face went ashen. Criminal, Daniel stood. Your Honor, we'd also like to submit evidence of additional victims. Mr. and Mrs. Evans appear to have defrauded at least 3 elderly neighbors. The judge's expression darkened further. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, I suggest you obtain criminal defense attorneys immediately. Outside the courthouse, Marina Phillips was waiting with her photographer. Ms. Bennett, would you care to comment? I'd prepared for this moment. Financial abuse within families is more common than people realize. It's not always the elderly who are victims. Sometimes it's adult children being systematically exploited by parents who view them as resources rather than family. I hope my story encourages others to recognize the signs and protect themselves. The article ran Sunday morning with the headline, Local Business Owner Exposes Parents' Elaborate Fraud Scheme. It included portions of the evidence I'd authorized Marina to share enough to show the truth without compromising the criminal case. My phone exploded with messages. Former clients expressing support, other victims of my parents reaching out, even Jake, finally understanding the truth, sent a brief, I'm sorry, I had no idea. Tuesday brought the next blow to my parents. The DA's office filed formal charges: fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and elderly financial abuse for the neighbor victims. Bail was set at $50,000 each, ironically. Exactly what they'd tried to extort from me initially. But I wasn't done. Patricia had discovered something during her investigation that changed everything. My parents had been planning to flee. She'd found evidence of passport renewals, one-way tickets to Costa Rica booked for 3 weeks out, and attempts to liquidate their hidden assets. I provided this information to the DA immediately. Their bail was revoked. Wednesday evening, I sat in my office, watching the sun set over the harbor. The last 2 weeks had been exhausting, but necessary. My phone rang. Daniel Harper. Claire, I have news. Your parents' attorney wants to discuss a plea deal. They're willing to admit guilt in exchange for reduced sentences. No deals, I said firmly. They go to trial. I want every piece of evidence entered into public record. That could take months, maybe years. I've waited 42 years for justice. I can wait a little longer. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Each day, I sat in the gallery, watching as the evidence mounted against them. Patricia Miles testified about the fraudulent accounts. The elderly neighbors told their stories of manipulation and theft. The forensic accountant detailed years of financial crimes. When I took the stand, I spoke clearly and without emotion, presenting facts like the business owner I was. Every receipt, every recording, every piece of evidence was entered into record. Mom tried to catch my eye several times, attempting to resurrect that old guilt. But that part of me was dead now, buried beneath $300,000 of receipts and a lifetime of manipulation. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, elder abuse, racketeering, each charge carrying years of prison time. During sentencing, my parents were given the opportunity to speak. Dad went first, still trying to play the victim, talking about how they'd raised me, sacrificed for me. Mom followed with tears and accusations, calling me heartless, saying I'd destroyed the family. Judge Harrison wasn't moved. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, you systematically exploited your daughter's love and trust for financial gain. You attempted to destroy her business and reputation. You defrauded innocent elderly neighbors. You've shown no remorse, only anger at being caught. I sentence you each to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. 8 years. They'd be in their 70s when released, their reputation destroyed, their assets liquidated for restitution. The golden retirement they'd tried to steal from me had evaporated. As the bailiffs led them away, Mom turned back one last time. "You're not our daughter anymore," she hissed. "I never was," I replied quietly. "I was just your ATM." Outside the courthouse, the spring air felt clean and sharp. Marina Phillips was there again, but I waved her off. This wasn't about publicity anymore. It was done. I drove to my office at Harbor & Co., which had survived and even thrived during the trial. Clients respected someone who stood up to abuse. Apparently, my business had never been stronger. That evening, I stood in my office as the sun set over Harbor Heights, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. On my desk sat a single document, the final accounting. Every penny my parents had stolen would be returned through asset liquidation and wage garnishment from their prison jobs. The elderly neighbors would be made whole. Even Jake would receive the money he never knew they'd taken in his name. I picked up the family photo I'd kept on my shelf, the one from my college graduation. All of us smiling at the camera, Mom and Dad flanking me, playing the role of proud parents. I studied it for a long moment, then dropped it in the trash. Some might say I should feel guilty. That family is family, no matter what. That forgiveness would bring peace. But they'd be wrong. Peace came from justice. Peace came from standing up to users and manipulators, even when they shared your DNA. Peace came from refusing to be anyone's victim, anyone's burden, anyone's personal bank account. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Miles. "Saw the news? You did good, Claire. Your story's going to help a lot of people recognize financial abuse. Maybe that was the real victory. Not the money recovered or the prison sentences, but the light shed on a darkness that too many suffer in silence. The shame of being exploited by those who should love you most. I poured myself a glass of wine and raised it to the empty office. To the burden who fought back, I said to the silence. The harbor lights twinkled below as night fell over Harbor Heights. Somewhere across town, 2 cells held the people who'd given me life but had tried to destroy it. I felt no satisfaction, no joy, just a cold finality. The story was over, not with reconciliation or forgiveness or lessons learned on both sides. It ended the only way it could, with consequences, with justice, with the complete severance of bonds that had never truly existed. I closed my eyes and took a breath. Tomorrow, I'd continue building my business, my life, my future. Tonight, I simply stood in the quiet victory of someone who'd refused to remain a victim. The burden had broken free. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please leave a comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about what you've just heard. Your own experiences and perspectives matter, and this community grows stronger when we share our truths together.